Bump my computer.
Dave, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I think we're getting ready to start. Are you ready to record?
It's already recording. I'm going to mute the room. Just the podium will be unmuted.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, guys, welcome to the Rotary Club of Kerrville. We're so happy to have you here on the day before Thanksgiving. It is something to be thankful for, to have us here both in person and in Zoom. And also we're thankful on, it's kind of neat to have the sheriff speaking to us today when we have a lot to be thankful for that man who's given us 40 years of his life, 20 years as sheriff. So I would like to remind you to turn off your cell phones, to check into Facebook and let people know that you're at your Rotary meeting. And on Zoom, if you could please mute your computers. We look forward to this meeting. It's going to be very nice. I'd like to ask Christy Vandenberg to come and lead us in the prayer and the pledge.
Please pray with me. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for all the gifts that we've been given. We thank you especially for the gift of health for all of our members and for our community. Lord, be with all the people who right now have tested positive, and I just hope that their symptoms are asymptomatic. Thank you. I have a person on my right to help me. Lord, you're so good to us. We ask that you just cover us this Thanksgiving holiday. Cover the people who travel. Cover the people who are at home trying to stay safe as they can. Be with our military. Be with our first responders. Be with us. Let us feel your presence every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Dave, do you want to put the flag up? There you go. All right.
Oh, I'm supposed to do this.
Yes. Here we go.
I'm sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, guys, now I would like to invite Clint Morris to introduce our speaker, although there's several people in this room that could do it themselves, but Clint is going to do a great job for us.
Thank you very much, President Tammy. We needed a big draw today, obviously the day before Thanksgiving, and we got it. Our speaker today is a native Texan whose family goes all the way back to the very beginnings of Texas. He's married, he has 4 children and 10 grandchildren. He moved to Kerrville in 1975. He has over 32 years of service with the Sheriff's Department, the last 20 of which he's been the Kerr County Sheriff. He's got more certificates, commendations, and awards than I could ever list. But as a lawyer, I was kind of interested that courts have recognized him as an expert in blood stain pattern analysis, whatever that is, fingerprint comparison, and crime scene reconstruction. I think we all realize that that kind of dedication, training, and experience is irreplaceable. And while we welcome our new sheriff-elect, we also want to give a very extra warm Rotary welcome to our retiring sheriff, Rusty Hierholzer, who will speak to us on his years of service. I've practiced that name over and over. Please join me.
Don't feel bad, Clint. I butcher that name a lot myself. You know, my dad always told people the easiest way to remember how to pronounce it is if you had a dog named Hoser, just call him Hierholzer. It works. So sometimes I have to try and remember that. But no, I truly want to thank y'all. It's not y'all thanking me for and September the 8th of this year was the 40th year that I've been doing this. I was 20 years as a deputy and investigator and 20 years as sheriff, 5 terms. And I guess I ought to be mentally.
David, tell him to use the microphone.
But, it's been a career that I have truly treasured. It's been my entire adult life has been spent with the Kerr County and Kerr County Sheriff's Office. When we moved here in 1975, my dad was the first DPS narcotics agent ever stationed in Kerr County. And he, back then, did the first organized crime case that was ever done in the state of Texas, involving about 70 people, 75 defendants. The main guy was out of Austin and owned a bunch of racehorses and businesses and never did drugs in his life, but he sure ran an organized crime operation. And my first real, I guess, awakening to law enforcement back then was I was a senior in high school here, and the guy that ran that organization had literally put a contract out on my dad, okay? And so dad was in hiding, so you had me and mom and my little brother were living at the house out in Kerrville South. And so I spent weeks at night on the couch sleeping with the shotgun. That was my welcome to law enforcement. So why I didn't run then, I don't know, but I guess, And then when I decided to get into it, I got into this job September the 8th of 1980. My dad retired in 82. And so I was offered the position of the deputy sheriff by Sheriff Paul Fields back then. And I thought about it. I was working on a ranch, Prison Canyon Ranch, out at Camp Verde then. And I talked to my dad about it, and he said, "You're crazy. Law enforcement's changed too much. You can't do law enforcement like it needs to be done. I'm getting out of it as quick as I can." And I thought, "You crazy old coot. I'm 21. I'm going to conquer the world. I can save the world. I'm going to do everything I can do." So I got into law enforcement. Now when the young kids come to me and talk about it, I say, "You're crazy. It's changed too much. Don't do it. You can't do law enforcement like it needs to be done." But, when I started in Kerr County, we had an average jail population of maybe 5. We didn't even have a 24-hour sheriff's office. The total department, there was about 13 of us, counting the sheriff and secretaries. And I worked probably 6-8 years from 3 p.m. to, mine was 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. what I worked. And after 4, nobody was out, except I was on call till 8. So then I'd get called back out if something happened. So you just get home and then get called back out. But we didn't have that 24-hour department. Now, there's 116 members of the sheriff's department. We have a jail with 328 beds with an average population of over 200. So things have changed. And why Larry's sitting over there wants it, I think now he needs a mental evaluation, okay? But no, I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. I would have never, ever wanted to do this job anywhere else in the world than right here. I've been fortunate enough to be gone through the FBI Academy. We had people from 13 different countries and I think 47 different states at that academy. And so the biggest thing, and Mr. Wendling can attest to this because he's been through it, one of the biggest things you learn is you get time to sit and visit with those people from the other countries on how their country does law enforcement or how it's done even in the other states and what they go through. And I think this last year has shown us how it's done in a lot of other states. And I couldn't be prouder than what Texas does. And I never was prouder than what Texas does, because, and even comparing to the other countries, it's unreal how some other countries do law enforcement. And that's where we're blessed. It's not a perfect system. There's a lot that could be improved. But I'll give you an example. I had a guy in my academy class, and I won't even say what country he was from. But it took them, their law enforcement officers, he had to have 6 years of training before he could be an officer. But when he stopped somebody on the side of the road for speeding or whatever, he would tell them what their fine was going to be. And then he would ask them to put up collateral for that fine. And if they didn't have the money, he would take their watch or car, whatever it was, and he'd take it with them. And that's the collateral. And guess who they had to go before when they went to court? He was also the judge. Okay? And that's legitimate in that country. That's the way it was done. He was over most officers in that area, but he could also do law enforcement himself. And then he was the judge they saw. Now, how would that work in Texas? And so, you know, we're blessed. I mean, I've been through some things that I probably will never, ever get those images out of my mind, okay? But I've been through other things that I hope I never get those images out of my mind, because some of those things that you see where we've really helped somebody, or it's turned them around, or just one kid we turned around, or helping one, those are what you live for. That's what we do this for. It's not the bad wrecks and the bad murder scenes and all that kind of stuff. It's the ones that you can truly help. And I tell my guys all the time, and gals, that we're law enforcement, but above all, we're public servants. I don't care if it's, you know, the cat in the tree or the dog under the house or the snake up on the front porch or you know, a loose cow or whatever. That's what we're there for. We're the public servants. They have to be counselors, social workers, you know, law enforcement, you name it, they've got to be it. A lot of times nowadays it's parents too, because unfortunately we don't really have a lot of the parents at home like I grew up with, okay? And that's sad, because it does hurt. But I've worked cases such as the slave ranch, the Elbrock slave ranch case, where we had a rancher going out on the interstate picking up hitchhikers and then torturing them with cattle prods and things until they cut enough cedar and did his little cedar keychains like he wanted that they sold, and they tortured one to death. And they burned him and did all that kind of stuff. We worked that case. You know, I worked Janine Jones, and I'm going to tell you something. I have never been in a fight as bad with a female as the day we arrested Janine Jones. Me and that gal flipped over couch, chairs, kitchen table, you name it. It was that little deal up in Ingram, and that was the worst fight I ever had with a female. But those that don't know Janine Jones, she was the one that, she was a nurse. They were moving here from San Antonio, her and her doctor, and they were going to create a pediatric deal in Kerrville, and she wanted to make it the best in the world. So she was injecting little kids with sectional choline, which is a poison. It's kind of to put them to sleep, okay? And then she was going to save them, but she lost some, and she killed them. And she got life in the penitentiary finally. And about 2 years ago, she got paroled. And thank goodness, Bexar County finally filed a whole bunch more deaths on her when she was working at the hospital in Bexar County. And so she pled to those again a few months ago and got life again. So she'll die in the penitentiary, which is exactly where she needs to be, because there's nothing worse in the world than having to exhume an 18-month-old baby's body after they've been buried a year, okay? And so those kind of cases I work, you know. I swore, you know, when I got to be sheriff, the 2 years, 18 years of my sheriff's job have been great. the first year was terrible, and this last year has been a booger. I'm gonna be honest. I'm so proud of our department, but I was hoping to take the last year of being sheriff and goof off, and it just hadn't turned out that way, the way things have gone. But the first year I was sheriff is we had the I-10 kidnapper, the guy that went around from Houston to Louisiana and kidnapping little girls out of their front yard and brought them no place but Kerrville, okay, to a hunting cabin and sexually abused them for a long time. One out of San Antonio, one out of Houston, one out of Louisiana. And lo and behold, we caught him here. Well, one of our sergeants caught him. We had word of it. And when the sergeant drove up, he rescued the little girl. And the guy took a shot at the sergeant, but then he missed him, so he decided to shoot himself, which saved us all. Okay, and that worked. And then we had the college girl, Miss Julie Beasley, that, we had a guy that was a patient at one of our local rehabs, and he unfortunately went off the deep end, and he carjacked a little lady here in town, 80-year-old lady, and ran over stealing a car. And my dad, who was retired at that time and was used to go up to that restaurant and eat breakfast just with that little lady. They became friends. This lady was in her 80s, and he saw the guy, and my dad didn't have a gun with him or anything else. He was retired at that time. So he took out chasing him, and the chase was on. They left Kerrville, went out towards Comfort, went off the interstate, offside, and all that kind of. Unfortunately, during the chase, my dad had a heart attack. So then I'm dealing with it as sheriff from, now we got a guy on the loose. He hit a 90-year-old lady in the head with a frying pan and took a gun from her out where he went off the interstate. And my dad's in the hospital with a heart attack, and we had a 4-day manhunt for this guy before we finally got him caught. And she shot the college girl at the end of that manhunt. Then he got in a chase. Where's Rosa? I saw her. Rosa Lavender helped us solve that case, because after he shot the girl, we had all been hunting him for 4 days, and thank goodness, we had a description of the vehicle. Rosa was working for the newspaper, weren't you then? Going out to the scene where the girl had been shot, and she passed the vehicle that we had been hunting for, and it was on the scanner, and so she told us. And so that helped us, and we took out chasing it, and out 173, out by what used to be the Lopez Club between Kerrville and Camp Purdy, he, right in the middle of the road, decided to shoot himself while he was driving. So that took care of that one. But some of those situations, and the college girl survived. She did good, and we took care of that case. But I've always said that Kerr County is one of the most safest, quiet areas that we could ever ask for. I can count probably on both hands the number of murders we've actually had to deal with. And normally, if we have to, out in the county, if we have to deal with one a year, that's almost unusual at times, 1 or 2. But what happens for some reason is there's not a normal barroom killing in this county. I'm sorry. It's going to be some wild, weird, off-the-wall thing that's going to make national news, and you're going to have 400 media trucks show up, and you're going to arrest one or have one guy that's killed and arrest 23 people for his murder. Where else can something like that happen? All right, we get those weird things. I've also always said, if you have full moon, everybody says that you come out on full moon. No, not in Kerr County. Wait 2 weeks after the full moon. 2 weeks after the full moon, things will go crazy. Okay, just the way it works. But, the blessing is I would have never, ever wanted to spend my career anywhere else. I do not know of any agency, whether it's been the federal ones or other ones that I've seen, even around Texas, that has had the public support that our agency gets from the public we serve. And that our law enforcement, whether it's us, police department, Ingram, it's unbelievable the support we get from the public in this community. And that's something that's unheard of. And that's what I hope Larry, keeps up. I have some policies in my department, which I don't know if Larry's going to keep them or not. He may. I hope he improves them. I'm old fashioned. I don't have computers in our cars and all that kind of stuff that all the young officers want. All right. So it's time for me to go. It's time for somebody else to bring in new ideas and bring up new things. But I had one policy that I live by, and a lot of people have heard about it, and that is my marriage policy. And what that is, and that I've always had, was if you were married and you had an affair on your spouse, then I was going to fire you in a heartbeat if you worked for me. Okay? Or if you were single and you had an affair with a married person, I'm going to fire you there too. I believed in that because my belief is if you can't uphold what I feel is one of the most sacred vows we give, which is our marriage vows, or help somebody else uphold theirs, how in the world can I expect you to be loyal to this county and uphold your oath of office? And those were some of my beliefs, and that I still hold. And I think Larry and Chris hold a lot of those same beliefs. And we've been working a lot with Larry for the last couple of months now, I guess, huh, Larry? In fact, he's one of my reserves. Now I get to assign him to do all kinds of stuff, don't have to pay him, at least until January, right? But no, we're trying to make sure that the transition has no hiccups, and he gets as good a start as him and Chris can. I think he's learning that there's a little bit more to a sheriff's office than what most people believe there is. I mean, whether it's dealing with civil papers or your jail or anything else, it's just, there's a lot to it. And it's not a question of if the department's ever going to face lawsuits. It's only a question of when. I think I've got 6 or 8 still pending. I've probably been sued 100 times, okay, in federal court. We've never lost any, don't intend to, but it's a suit-happy world, and those are things you'll have to deal with. I'll probably be dealing with some of those for the next 4 or 5 years. Even though I'm retired, I still have to deal with them. And then I get to make sure Larry gets to deal with them. But Kerr County's a unique county, totally. And people are always coming up to me now telling me, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done for this community. And that's not right, okay? It's me that should be saying thank you, because y'all gave me the best 40 years of my life, except for my wife, who sometimes I think she wonders, My wife retired 10 years ago as a special education teacher for KISD. She taught 3rd and 4th grade special education. So I'm her work in progress. I keep her tuned up for training. She tells everybody, she gets to stay in shape with all her psychology degrees and everything else, just trying to deal with me. So, it works, but it's hard for me to get anything over on her though, because she understands it. So, but she's been my right hand. She's been my total moral support. She's seen me come home crying at times. She's seen me come home madder than a wet hen at times. And, she's been there beside me the whole time. I actually have 11 grandkids, my 4 kids. I got one of those that's a career Air Force. He's been in the Air Force almost 20 years now. So I'm very proud of him. Right now he's deployed. So I say my prayers for him every day. But, fortunately, really, one of my grandsons just took the oath of office to go into the Air Force himself last week. So, I'm kind of proud of him. And now I'm getting close to telling you my age when I say grandsons are in the Air Force. And my boy told me he was going to retire same time I did. I said, that ain't right. But it's been good. It's been a blessing. We've been fortunate. The employees are what make it. I've been very, very blessed to have some of the best employees you can ask for. Sure, there's hiccups. There's not an agency or a business in this country that doesn't once in a while have to deal with an employee that you wish you didn't have, okay? It happens in every line of business there is. But we've been very fortunate to have some of the most dedicated employees that you could ever ask for. And the one thing I will say, and then I'll close, is the employees, such as myself, are doing the jobs that we truly love to do, or we wouldn't be doing it. But it's not necessarily our family's choice, but they support us 100%. And that spouse at home that worries if that husband or that wife's going to walk back in the door when they leave, especially in today's world and what you see, that's putting a lot on our families. It's worrying about, is my husband or wife going to bring, or am I going to take COVID home and infect my kids and my spouse? Okay, I'll be honest. I've already had COVID. My wife had COVID. Okay. I've already, taken it home in ways. And some of my officers already have. We've been blessed. We've been able to keep it out of our jail. And that takes a lot, because that's a place that if it gets in there, it's a nightmare, because you do have the most vulnerable people. Face it, you got drug addicts and people that aren't healthy in there. And if it gets in there in the ventilation, you're going to be in trouble. And it could cost this county millions. So we're trying everything we can do to keep it home. The funny part about it, I would have always swore that other than Halloween, if I ever saw somebody wearing a mask in public, I would put them on the ground, spread eagle, and, I'd catch myself a bank robber. Now I can't find anybody not wearing a mask, so, including myself most of the time. I may have a difference with our governor on whether it's enforceable in the way he wrote the mandate, but that doesn't mean I don't support wearing it. We just pray for the vaccine to come out soon and get all this behind us. But I think I've probably gone on long enough. I hope next time y'all can have Larry up here to say, just what he wonders about this place. And y'all may all pitch in, because he's going to have that psychological exam, I promise you. But no, thank you. Thank y'all for inviting me. And it's truly been a pleasure for the last 40 years and 20 as sheriff. Sure. Tammy tells me that I have to take questions if y'all have any, so. I have to. Oh, that figures she's the one with questions. Okay, Tammy. Yeah.
Can you tell us the story about I'd like to hear about two things. The story about Paul Fields and Commissioner's Court when you got hired. And can you also tell us about your special coin that you just did that story?
Well, Paul Fields, like I said, he was sheriff and offered me a position. Back then, I didn't quite have the belly spread I have now. I was 21 years old. I was lucky if I weighed 130 pounds dripping wet, okay? And I just wasn't a very big person at all. And even though sheriffs don't have to, he always took things to the commissioner's court on who he hires. Now, commissioner's court has the authority to control how many people I get, okay, or the sheriff's office can hire because of budget, but they don't have any authority over who those people are. But Paul had a different philosophy back then, and he'd take it. So I had to go into commissioner's court and introduce myself to them, and they argued for an entire day on whether or not to hire me, because they said he was just too little and too young, and he's going to get hurt, and you can't hire him. Well, Paul finally told him, well, he was hiring me anyhow. My mama told me I was too little, too young. She said the same thing the commissioners were saying, so, but I did get hired. And, the deal with the coin, and y'all saw it in Tammy's article, back in the 80s, I guess, when I was patrolling, I arrested a young man from here. Well, he arrested him on some drug charges. He had different charges. He was young. He had moved in here. I tried to talk to him a little bit. He was a pretty decent kid, but I told him, you better show up, and tried to get him confessed, and he wouldn't. I said, well, make sure when you go to court, you tell that judge, you be honest with him. Well, he didn't do that either, so he ended up in a little more trouble and ended up in our jail for a number of months, probably close to 6-8 months, something like that he spent in jail. But, and we talked to him, and in that jail, it's not just a jail. We do try and, turn people around. We run church, well, before COVID, we'd run church services almost 7 days a week, non-denominational. We do counseling, we did GED classes, we would try and help him. And once he got released from jail, I never thought about it. But that's been about 3 months ago now, that all came out 2 months ago, 3 months ago. He called my office. I hadn't talked to him in years. And he wanted an appointment to come see me. And so my secretary set it up, and he came in, and he looked different. He, like me, expanded a little bit, but he looked good, and we talked for a while, and he handed me, he said, I got this. He said, I gave one of my 10-year one to the judge one time that sentenced me. But he said, this is my 30-year sobriety coin. And he said, I'd like for you to have it. because he said, you changed my life. Okay. He's a local businessman here now. He does a great, has a great business, but he said it turned his life around. And if we can do that, it makes my 40 years worth it. All right. Every bit of what we've gone through, that's what makes it worth it. If law enforcement can get the attitude of helping and trying to do everything we can and treating people the best way, that's the hardest thing we fight now. Some of these younger ones are a little cocky in that, but if we can turn them around, I think this community, and with community's help, we do. Okay. I'll be honest, 40 years, my parents raised me up to 21, right? But this community raised me the rest of the time. And they're the ones that shaped me to be who I am now, whether that's good or bad. But, if we can do that, we can make one person's life better, then law enforcement's accomplished it. Thank you.
Sheriff, what's your hurdle right now that you're struggling with the most as a law enforcement side? Is it mental health or drug addicts or sexual offense?
Mental health is unbelievable. Okay. And it's a bad thing in this community. Okay. It's unfortunate. You think we'd be all right. We've got a state hospital here. We've got a CSU here, but unfortunately there's not enough beds. All right. So my guys are having to haul people, even just civilians that end up getting, emergency detention orders because of mental health. No crime, but because of mental health. We're having to haul them hundreds of miles just to find them a bed to put them in a hospital. Okay. And that's every day. If it's a crime, and I've got one in jail, like we have several right now that have been found incompetent to stand trial, so they need to send them to a mental hospital. The nightmare about that is, say they commit, and we've had this happen, say they commit a murder today, okay? And we catch them today. And they're in jail. And then their attorney's going to bring up the incompetent, that they're mentally stable. To get that finally through court, even before COVID, to get it to the point of declaring them mentally incompetent to stand trial, they're normally going to sit in jail right at a year before they even get to that point. After they get to that, if they're found incompetent, then they go on a waiting list for the state, because they have to go to a state hospital because they're mentally incompetent. The waiting list for the state of Texas right now for beds for mental incompetency is a little over a year. That's once they're on the list. So he's going to sit in jail another year waiting for a bed. And then once we finally get him a bed, now he's already been in jail right at 2 years. He gets a bed, he goes down there, they put him on some medications, they work with him. Maybe in 6 months they say he's competent to stand trial. So you bring him back. Well, it's going to take another 6-8 months to get him back into court to file that, declare on that competency. And by that time, he's locked up in a concrete square in that cell by himself, because you can't put him in with others because of the situation. And by the time he goes back to court, now he's incompetent again. So now he goes back on that waiting list, and you start that cycle all over again. Okay? That's wrong. This state's wrong in doing that. I'll be honest. This state, the last I knew, was ranked 48th in funding for mental health. Law enforcement gets the blame every time we have to deal with one. Okay?
What's the average daily cost to keep an inmate like that in your jail?
Right now, it's about 37 a day. Okay? It's pretty close, once you figure up everything. But the state has to do something with mental health. It should, number one, and me and the local mental health people go round and round about this, because my mother had some mental health issues after she had a brain aneurysm and had to have brain surgery. She wasn't ever the same after that. And I had to commit her a number of times. But what's really bad, and what I think is totally wrong, and I went to the legislature over it, and unfortunately one of the heads of MHMR here fought it, is the biggest deal is with those type of people, they aren't criminals. They have a mental health issue, okay? And my belief is that's a medical and a mental problem These aren't violent people. These are just people with a mental health issue. And that's something medical and mental health people need to deal with. But what's happened over the years is it's become and been forced to be a law enforcement issue. So they do an emergency detention order. So now law enforcement has to pick this person up that's not a criminal. And we're going to put them in a caged, marked unit, and we're going to drive them 100 miles away from their family and commit them to a hospital. Now, what did we just do to that person that's already in a mental crisis? It's wrong. But that's what's happened, and that's where we are. And it happens every single day. Not once a week, not once a month. We're transporting people like that every single day. Okay, that's the biggest. And then, of course, we all know, and you know, the drug problem is unreal. And right now with COVID and everything, all the drug dealers think they're free to deal drugs because nobody's going to arrest them because of COVID, you know, and it's just, it's a nightmare. We do arrest them. We presented 30 some odd cases last month to grand jury. We presented another 30 cases the other day to grand jury. Methamphetamine's an epidemic in this county, and it's a nightmare. And it creates some mental health issues too. So, all right, I'll get on a soapbox, and I better not. So, yes, sir. Yes, definitely. Okay, we're seeing an uptick in suicides. We're seeing an uptick in just mental health people. We're seeing an uptick in alcoholism. I mean, you name it. It's we weren't born to wear a mask and be locked in our houses. And sometimes, you know, like they said, the cure can't be, or the, you know, however they want to say it, can't be worse than the cure. You know, it's than the disease. We got to be careful. Okay. So I think there is a fine line. I think the best thing we can do is get a vaccine and, you know, get through it.
Just a second. Hey, David, do you have any questions from our virtual members?
I don't see any at the moment. Did anybody
Great.
have a question?
Great. Well, Sheriff, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Tammy.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate it. So I'd like to invite Jeff Harris, our president-elect, to introduce our guest.
Thank you, President Tammy. And I can attest to Sheriff Hierholzer's policy, because when I worked for him for a little stint of time, the very first thing he said to me when I did my interview with him was, if you sleep with another man's wife, I will fire you on the spot. So I know that to be true. So would like to introduce our guest today. Roy Boudreau, you have a guest with us that is also a proposed member. So if you'd like to introduce him again. Carol Holmes, you have a guest with us again this week.
This is Leslie Wells Landon, and she is from Florida and in Rotary already and is wanting to transfer to our club.
Wonderful. I know she misses dreary Florida weather, so it's and then Jeff Wendling, we've already introduced our guest, but he is here with us again this week. Our sheriff would like to And I do know some people on mental health, Larry, we can get you some help. Thank you.
Great. Okay, guys. So last week we had an auction, an impromptu auction, and this one's not impromptu because I announced it, but at our polio event, we had 2 items that we had planned to use for a fundraiser, and we didn't get them in correctly. So this is the second and last. I'd like to auction off. It is chocolate covered peanuts and raisins. There are 1,142 pieces in here. So who's going to give me an opening bid? $5, $20, $100. Yay, Mike Wilson. Okay, guys, I have $100. I'm not expecting much more, but we'll take more. Okay, Mike Wilson, these are yours, and thank you so much. That $100 will go towards your Paul Harris, and it will go towards our Polio Plus effort. So thank you so much. Okay, we have some club business. I want to say one thing that I'm very excited to announce. Several years ago, Kim Clarkson, I believe, started an effort to build a habitat house. It was going to be a multi-year event, and that house has now been completed. We, as a club, have been invited to participate in the house blessing ceremony that will be on December 12th. Our house, the Rotary House, is located at 123 Glen Court. So that's December 12th. I'll get you the times and all that in our next email, but I just wanted you to know it's done. We're ready to celebrate it, and the new owners will be moving in soon. And that's because of Rotary effort. So thank you so much. Also, we have announced the polio Christmas cards, the Christmas cards that benefit the Polio Plus program. We have ordered 150 of them based on your request. We did order more, so when they come in, we will be able to get them to you. We just needed to get them ordered so that we can have them here in time to go out for Christmas. So we ordered 150. If you've ordered them, they'll be here soon and we'll distribute. And if you didn't get your order in, don't worry, we ordered over so that we would be able to accommodate your need. We have some need for Blue Santa for bell ringing. I was just told before this event that tomorrow the Salvation Army will feed 1,200 people. That's the kind of work that the Salvation Army does. They've also told us at the newspaper that they are overwhelmed with requests for angel tree donations. This bell ringing is really important to help fund those efforts. So if you,
Yeah. Can you hear me, President?
yes, I didn't know you were going to speak. Yay. So
Well, thank you. And thanks for pointing out how important this is. This is so important. I sent out a note last week and you all filled up our dance card for Saturday. So thank you. Because of Croc and this year especially, they need the help. Now, the thing is, I mentioned also, well, I have two other things. First thing is COVID. The whole concept here is to be COVID safe. That means the kettle is 10 or 12 feet away and you're over here and it's over there and you ring the bell. And don't go up and shaking hands if you don't want to, whatever. Please wear a mask, wear an apron so people know who you are. But I think it's going to be fine. But you have to help make it fine by having people not running up and hugging them. The point I wanted to make, several of our slots are singles. And if you haven't had the fun of ringing a bell, or if there's a Rotarian you don't know and you'd like to get to know, which is anybody you don't know, then come ring the bell with them. It's easy. You'll get these notes every week. And you see the spoke, and there's a way to click on there and just sign up. So it's an easy process. If you have trouble, call me. But all that to say, thank you for ringing. It's important work, and have fun doing it. Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Dave. You do a great job at that. We really appreciate it and enjoy your enthusiasm for the project. I sent out a link in our weekly email this week, so you can click on that and sign up, and we'll continue to do that. So please help us fill those Saturdays that we need to fill. Also, Blue Santa, we will be participating again in Blue Santa. The distribution day will be December 12th. We have a group of people that are getting traditional Christmas meals ready for the families that the Kerrville Police Department have identified as a need. And as I told you last week, we are adding the Doyle Community Center to our effort to include 60 families. So this is really a great project. If there's any of you that want to help volunteer in whatever capacity, please let us know, because this is going to be, especially the addition of the 60 families, will need some help just boxing food and maybe shopping. And Stephanie Scramita is really kind of heading up that project. So thank you so much. Rotary Blood Drive. Our next blood drive is December 8th. I sent out the link also in our weekly email for signups. I know that with cases going up, maybe there's some concern, but these are medical professionals that are going to keep us safe. We're going to be social distance. We're going to be wearing masks. They're going to have their gear up. I think it's very safe. But it is a need. I mean, it's just like everything else. In COVID, the blood bank is low and they need us to help supply that. So I'm not begging you to do it, but if you're so inclined, we sure would appreciate it. And you can sign up on that email. I don't know that I have anything else to go with this. We do have some time. Dave, do you want to do a breakout or not?
We don't really have a full 10 minutes for a breakout.
Okay.
No, I'm
We'll make
suggesting not, because then we need to get back together again and close. And did you do the pin thing yet?
Okay, great. Well, then I would like to say on this day before Thanksgiving that I'm thankful for each of you. We have tried really hard to accommodate the needs of our club, to keep us all together, and we've done that. And I think that while they're not in here, the Kroc Center should be thanked, because they've done an excellent job. They've allowed us to be able to be together for the people who are not comfortable being in person and those who really prefer to be in person. So when you leave, please tell them thank you. And I also have some wine to give away. So I ask you to have your pins on. So hopefully you have your pins on. The first person is going to be funny, I think. Christy, is Bruce McKenzie. Bruce McKenzie, do you have your pin on?
Bruce, you are on mute.
Christy used to always check every day.
I've got it. I've got it.
Yay!
Right here.
See, all those years of Christy bugging you worked out. Do you like red or white?
Red, please.
Okay, and how can I get it to you?
I can come by and pick it up.
Okay, our office is at 303 Earl Garrett, and that's where it'll be.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And on this day before Thanksgiving, I also want to say thank you to each of you. You have done a great job. We do a wonderful job in the community as a club, not one person, not our board. This entire club comes together to do some great things. And I just want to tell you that I'm thankful to be a part of this club. So thank you. Do I have anything else? Anybody have anything for the good of the club they want to share? Okay, so if you'll join me in the four-way test. Of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Is it
Is
fair,
it fair to all concerned?
Will it be
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it be
Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Say, Dave,